cream envelope arrived. No flashy packaging, no dramatic presentation, just a discreet seal and an embossed logo that every person in the world of fashion recognizes the moment they see it. Vogue. Inside that envelope was an invitation, and on that invitation was a name that sent shockwaves through two entirely different worlds. The world of professional tennis and the world of high fashion. Alex Eala, 21 years old, born in Manila, raised on a tennis court that had literally been painted over a basketball court in Quezon City. And now, right now, Anna Wintour herself had looked at a list of the most powerful, most celebrated, most culturally relevant human beings on the planet, and she had circled this young woman's name, not as a guest of someone else, not as a seat filler or a background face in a photograph, as a cultural icon. As a symbol of something bigger than sport, bigger than fashion, bigger than any single moment, a symbol of a nation that had finally, undeniably arrived on the global stage. This is the story of how Alex Eala walked into the most exclusive room in the world, and why that moment will be remembered long after the cameras stopped flashing. Before we get to the red carpet, you need to understand something about the Met Gala that most people get completely wrong. It is not about money. It is not about fame. It is not even about talent. Not entirely. Because here is the truth. There is no ticket price high enough, no donation large enough, no publicist clever enough to guarantee you a seat at the Metropolitan Museum of Art on the first Monday of May. Hundreds of names are submitted. Hundreds of people, celebrities, athletes, musicians, designers, executives are considered. And then one woman sits down with that list and she starts cutting. Anna Wintour, editor-in-chief of Vogue, the most powerful gatekeeper in fashion, personally approves every single name on the guest list, whittling hundreds of potential invitees down to just 400. No plus ones unless she signs off. No phones allowed inside. A strict 18+ age restriction. A seating chart so carefully constructed that where you sit can define your place in the cultural conversation for the next 12 months. When Alex Eala's name made it through that process, when Anna Wintour looked at that list and said yes, the tennis world genuinely didn't know what to do with itself. Because by any measure, Eala had already done things no Filipino tennis player had ever done before. She had become the first from her country to reach the second week of a Grand Slam in the Open era. She had stepped onto center court at Wimbledon and defeated the defending champion, Iga Swiatek, in front of a crowd that included Andrew Garfield, Tom Hiddleston, and yes, Anna Wintour herself, sitting courtside, watching every point. She had climbed to a career-high world ranking of number 28. She had won the WTA Star of the Swing Award with a staggering 89% of the public vote, a margin so dominant it wasn't even a competition. The tennis world knew exactly who Alex Eala was. But the Met Gala invitation said something the rankings and the trophies couldn't quite capture. It said she has transcended sport. It said she belongs in a conversation that goes far beyond what happens on a tennis court. It said that Anna Wintour, the woman who had watched her dismantle a champion from courtside, had seen something in this young woman that went beyond athleticism. She had seen a star. A cultural force. A person whose presence in a room changes the energy of the room, and she wanted that presence at her event. This wasn't the first time the fashion world had taken notice of Eala. Long before the Met Gala invitation arrived, she had been building a relationship with Vogue Philippines that spoke to something deeper than a simple athlete meets magazine collaboration. She had graced the cover of Vogue Philippines, becoming one of the magazine's earliest cover stars and one of the most celebrated Filipino athletes ever to appear on its pages. She had worked with Nike on the Full Bloom collection, a tribute to her Filipino heritage that wove the sampaguita, the Philippines' national flower, into the design language of her on-court wardrobe. Custom pieces. Cultural pride stitched into athletic fabric. A statement that said, "I know where I come from, and I'm not hiding it." She had posed for Vogue Philippines shoots wearing limited edition designs, including a custom hair tie that had quietly become one of her most recognizable signatures, both on and off the court. Her partnership with Nike had produced pieces that didn't just perform, they told a story. And that story was always the same one. A young Filipino woman carrying her culture with her wherever she went, whether that was a Grand Slam court in London or a fashion shoot in Manila. But even with all of that, the Vogue covers, the Nike collaborations, the cultural visibility, the Met Gala, was on a different level entirely. This was not a magazine shoot. This was not a brand campaign. This was the single most exclusive fashion event on the planet, an event where art, celebrity, and haute couture converge beneath the domed ceilings of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. An event that welcomed Serena Williams and turned her into a fashion icon in her own right. An event where the red carpet isn't just a red carpet. It's a cultural statement, a historical record, a moment studied and analyzed and celebrated for years after the fact. And now it was Alex Eala's turn. The 2026 Met Gala was not just any edition of the event. It was historic in its own right, layered with significance that made Eala's inclusion feel almost cosmically appropriate. The theme was costume as art. The dress code, fashion as art. The evening marked the inauguration of the brand new Condé Nast Galleries, a permanent, dedicated fashion space inside the Metropolitan Museum of Art, a landmark moment for the institution and for the fashion world alike. And the co-chairs for the evening, Beyoncé, Nicole Kidman, Anna Wintour, and Venus Williams. Let that land for a moment. Venus Williams, 7-time Grand Slam champion, fashion designer, cultural pioneer, one of the most celebrated athletes in human history, was co-chairing the very evening that Alex Eala was about to walk into. Her presence as co-chair wasn't just symbolic. It was a living, breathing reminder of the path great athletes can walk when they refuse to be defined by a single dimension of their identity. Venus had spent decades proving a tennis player could also be a fashion icon, a businesswoman, a cultural voice. And now she was standing at the door of the Met Gala, holding it open, and Alex Eala was walking through. The host committee read like a dream sequence. Zoe Kravitz, Sabrina Carpenter, Doja Cat, Gwendolyn Christie, Misty Copeland, Lisa of Blackpink, Sam Smith, Ayo Edebiri. And the rumored attendees were the kind of list that makes your eyes go wide. Lady Gaga, Zendaya, Rihanna, and Hathaway. A constellation of the most recognized faces on Earth gathered in one building on one night. And woven into that constellation, standing among them, belonging among them, was a 21-year-old from the Philippines who had earned every single second of her place there. Now, we need to talk about the dress. Because if you thought the invitation alone was a powerful story, if you thought the tennis victories and the Vogue covers and the Anna Wintour cosign were enough, you haven't heard the best part yet. When Alex Eala began thinking about what she would wear to the biggest fashion event of her life, she didn't call a legendary Parisian couture house. She didn't reach out to a stylist with a Rolodex full of luxury designers. She didn't send emails to Milan or New York asking for custom gowns from the world's most famous names. She called her uncle, Alex Eala, a celebrated Filipino designer with decades of experience, the creative mind who had previously designed for Miss Universe finalists and dressed some of the Philippines' most prominent women. He received a phone call from his niece with a brief that was beautifully, perfectly simple. She wanted something Filipino. She wanted something in piña, the extraordinary fabric woven from pineapple leaf fibers, one of the Philippines' most treasured and historically significant textiles. And she had one more request, delivered with the kind of casual confidence that is entirely, unmistakably Alex. She wanted a top she could remove at the end of the night, in case she wanted to go dancing. That's her. That's exactly who she is. Alex Eala accepted the brief. And then he had 1 week to bring it to life. 1 week for the Met Gala. For the biggest red carpet moment of his niece's life. For a garment that would be seen by hundreds of millions of people around the world and analyzed by every fashion critic with access to a camera or a keyboard. Alex and his team worked around the clock. No sleep, no shortcuts. Every stitch deliberate. Every choice considered. And what emerged from that week of focused, passionate, culturally rooted creation was nothing short of extraordinary. A floor-length, strapless gown in blush beige chiffon, soft, luminous, elegant in the way only true craftsmanship can achieve. Layered over it, a detachable cropped bolero crafted in piña fabric, featuring the iconic Terno butterfly sleeves. Those sleeves, wide, structured, unmistakably Filipino, are the signature silhouette of the traditional Filipiniana, a design element that dates back centuries and carries with it the full weight of Philippine cultural identity. But Ret didn't simply replicate tradition. He translated it. He took the spirit of the Terno, the pride of piña fabric, the elegance of the Filipiniana, and reimagine them for a 21-year-old woman standing on the most photographed staircase in the fashion world. Traditional in its soul, contemporary in every deliberate line, a design that could hold its own next to any couture gown on that red carpet, while never, not for a single moment, pretending to be anything other than proudly, beautifully Filipino. The bolero was detachable, just as Alex had requested, because she was going to wear her culture with grace and intention all evening, and then, later, when the night opened up and the music played, she was going to dance. On the evening of May 4th, 2026, a sleek black car made its way through the streets of Manhattan toward the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Inside that car was Alex Eala. When the door opened and she stepped out onto the carpet, the cameras didn't just flash. They erupted. The crowd gathered behind the barriers lining the famous steps roared. Fashion reporters who had been standing for hours, covering arrival after arrival, suddenly straightened up, leaned forward, and started talking faster, because she commanded the moment. The girl who had trained on a tennis court painted over a basketball court in Quezon City, who had grown up watching her country's athletes compete on the world stage and dreaming of the day she could join them, walked up those iconic steps of the Metropolitan Museum of Art with a kind of calm, radiant, unshakable confidence you simply cannot fake. She had conquered center court at Wimbledon. She had defeated the world's best tennis player in front of a crowd of thousands. She had held a trophy and heard a stadium chant her name. The Met Gala steps? She was ready. Fellow WTA players, watching from their phones around the world, lost their minds. Madison Keys, former Australian Open champion and one of the most respected voices in women's tennis, saw the photos and immediately made her feelings clear. Alex looked incredible. Jessica Pegula, one of the top-ranked players on the WTA tour, took one look at the images and said exactly what everyone was thinking. She looked like the princess of the Philippines. Zeynep Sonmez, one of Eala's closest friends on tour, a player who had spent time with her on the road, who knew her not just as a competitor, but as a person, simply typed, OMGGG. 3 letters, no further explanation required. Other players piled on. Storm Hunter, Katie Boulter, Victoria Mboko. The entire WTA community seemed to stop what it was doing and redirect its attention to the steps of a museum in New York, where their colleague was absolutely, undeniably glowing. Fashion critics, people who have spent careers parsing the details of what celebrities wear and why, were unanimous in their assessment. Star, one wrote, had been born on this red carpet. Alex Eala, the piece continued, had proved herself just as powerful and magnetic off the court as she's on it. But none of the external praise, not the critics, not the fellow players, not the thousands of comments flooding social media, captured the weight of this moment as clearly as what Alex herself wrote when she shared the photos with her followers. I doubt there are many pieces of clothing that make a Filipina feel more beautiful than a Filipiniana, she wrote. And then, for my first major red carpet appearance, I chose to wear this look as a quiet nod to where I come from and what I carry when I step into rooms like these. Read that again slowly. A quiet nod to where I come from and what I carry when I step into rooms like these. That is the whole story, right there in 2 sentences. Alex Eala didn't go to the Met Gala to impress Anna Wintour, though she absolutely did. She didn't go to get the fashion critics talking, though she unquestionably achieved that too. She didn't go to prove a point to the tennis world about her off-court versatility, though every player watching from their phones got that message loud and clear. She went because she is a young Filipino woman who has spent her entire career carrying her culture with her, through every Grand Slam draw, every center court walk, every trophy ceremony, every Vogue shoot. And when the most exclusive fashion event on the planet opened its doors to her, she walked through them wearing the most beautiful, most meaningful expression of that culture that she and her uncle could create together in 7 days. She walked through those doors for over 100 million people who had been waiting for a moment exactly like this one. The Met Gala has a long history of welcoming athletes who transcend their sport. Serena Williams walked those steps and became a fashion legend. Venus Williams co-chaired this very evening and turned athletic excellence into cultural currency. They paved a road. They proved it was possible. They showed the world that a champion's identity doesn't begin and end with a racket. But the Metropolitan Museum of Art had never, not once in all its years of hosting this event, seen a Filipino tennis player climb its famous staircase in a modern Filipiniana, carrying with her the history and the hopes and the pride of a nation that had spent decades waiting for its own global moment. When the cameras captured Alex Eala on those steps, the butterfly sleeves catching the light, the blush beige chiffon moving with her, her face calm and bright and entirely, completely present, they captured something that went far beyond fashion. They captured a girl who started on a painted basketball court in Quezon City and ended up at the center of the world's most glamorous night. They captured a nation seeing itself, maybe for the first time, reflected in a space it had always deserved to occupy. They captured a cultural icon, not just a tennis player, not just a red carpet guest, not just a name on Anna Wintour's list, an icon. And that moment, that image, that dress, those steps, that quiet nod to where she came from, will be remembered long after the flowers fade, the cameras pack up, and everyone goes home. Because some moments don't just happen.